I jump at any chance I can get to go out in the wide open sagebrush country of southeast Oregon. This time the thing that brings us here is we were able to draw mule deer tags for this area. So we're going to do a little bit of deer hunting and hopefully a whole lot of exploring. The scent of sagebrush is in the air as we set up our tent. It's Marge and myself and our son Dwayne and our grandson Joe and his wife are coming.
Sun's setting and everybody's putting up their tent.
We're working as fast as we can to get our tent set up before darkness. It's a little hard to concentrate on putting up a tent where the keepers of the star is putting the sun away in such a wonderful manner right in front of us. But we have to get that tent up so we can get in there and get some sleep and maybe check and see if we can see some deer in the morning. When morning arrives, we're down at the water hole to check and see if there's some water. There's just a little bit of water, and most all the other water holes in the area are dried up due to the drought, so that should help our cause of finding the deer.
Oh wow, 3 years ago, coming up the hill.
Oh yeah, I see him. So far, all we've been able to spot is an old white stallion over above the cliffs on the other side of the canyon. We can see he's traveling a considerable distance to water, and there's another stallion with him. This looks like a darker colored younger stallion with the big white. Here's what we're looking for, mule deer tracks. More deer tracks. And of course out here in this wide open sagebrush country, we're going to see a whole lot of the world's fastest long-distance runners, the North American antelope. They're a species all their own. According to the book, an antelope is an animal that has a pair of horns that just stick up and no branches on them, and also they don't shed the sheath off their horns. But these animals defy all this by having a branched horn, and they shed the sheath off from it every year. So according to that book, these aren't really an antelope, although we call them an antelope, but pronghorn might be a better name for them. Whatever you want to call them, speed is what they are. They're the world's fastest long-distance runners. And we're seeing plenty of them here. They're all bunched up, waiting for their annual migration. They're a migratory animal, and so they'll move on down to where they have better picking for the cold winter months.
And here, you could have leveled the stove. You know that?
Yeah, but I didn't. No, I don't cook. That's woman's work. The day is over before we hardly know it, and it looks like Marge is cooking us some good hamburger for dinner tonight, and another great sunset. The next morning is opening day of deer season, and we're out checking the hills to see if there are any deer wandering around. And what do we see but the wild horses again? The deer population is extremely low out here in this wide open country, desert country, with very few water holes, and about all there is to eat is a little bit of bunch grass and lots of sagebrush. So we're probably not going to see a deer right away. We have to hunt and hunt hard to find the elusive mule deer out in this sea of sagebrush. The wild horses are much larger than the mule deer, and also their color doesn't blend in nearly as good as the mule deer, but we'll still continue watching. I tell the rest of the people we may not see them the first or second day, but they're here, and if we keep at it long enough, we're going to find some. The wild horses are sneaking into the canyon right now to get them that all important drink of water that they need every day. One day we watched this water hole and there was only the darker colored stallion coming down to water, and so we feared the worst, that something had happened to the big stallion. The BLM had signs up all over the place that said that there was a wild horse trapping operation going on out there, where they just put a pen up and put some hay in it, and then when the horse goes in there, it's triggered and the horse is caught. And we thought maybe something like that happened to our big white stallion, but no, I don't know where he was that day, but the next day, here he is again. They're definitely best of buddies, and usually when you see one, you see the other nearby. And the big white stallion is in full charge. There's no doubt about it. So I don't know what happened to him that one day when we didn't see him, but apparently he just chose not to come in for water. All the streams and reservoirs and ponds and everything have dried up this year, and the feed is pretty scarce. They're going to have some trouble making it through the winter, but it doesn't seem to be worrying them that much. The big white stallion still in full charge, and he'll get up a ways and look back and see where his little buddy is. Usually we see more than just these two stallions out here, and I don't know what the situation is, unless the rest of them are just someplace else, or maybe a good amount of them have fallen victim to the BLM traps. But probably it's a good idea to trap them because they're going to be really short on feed out here this winter. But those powerful hooves can dig that bunch grass up right from beneath a bank of snow. They've both got their fill of water, and now they're moving on out to the desert to finish grazing. And these horses can travel 20 miles in a day from their grazing area to the water if they have to. They don't have quite that far to go here, but it's still a good distance. But they're horses, and they travel that distance in next to no time. The big white stallion will get up on the skyline and then graze around and wait for the other stallion to catch up. And he does that all the time. We notice that he's most definitely the head horse in charge. We found another spring. We're going to move to another area and see if we can find some deer. And at this spring, we find there's a little leak in a pipe and some birds are feeding around there. We then find this old homestead house. It was built kind of half below ground and half above ground. I think they called them dugouts. Hands or something like that. That they just use whatever they had available. It's collapsed and slid down, but they even had a little shelf here. Maybe you would sleep on that or use it. There was some use for it. And the house set up higher up here. There's even there's where their stovepipe came out, and they just bent this tin right over the top for a roof cap. The woodpeckers drilled him a hole there, it looks like. The roof is made from the tin of old kerosene cans they straightened out. They just had little nails they nailed this on with. At the time this was built, there must have been a sawmill around the area because it's sawed lumber. This may have been the root cellar right off to the side. Looks like it.
Probably actually a pretty comfortable little house.
Oh, I suppose it was pretty warm and nice. See where they... Oh, here's one of the old fuel cans or honey cans or whatever was in them that they scrounged up for the roof. And this was apparently the root cellar. There was a spring on out there where they got their water. And then the view was exceptional in this area. I'll bet of an evening those cliffs were really pretty. This would have been right from in front of their house. And the root cellar was right here where they put all their canned goods and stuff they grew in their garden, which would have been out there along the spring. Some old barbed wire from years gone by. From the old homestead house, we move on up to Spalding Reservoir. A lot of people used to go fishing here and do quite well fishing here, but not this year. There's not a speck of water in it. We're at Spalding Reservoir. That's supposed to be a good place to fish, but not this year. Just a little puddle of water here is all that's left where animals have been digging. This is an old ranch house that's been long since abandoned. A real nice little chimney. Oh, it's made out of sandstone. And it looks like they could cut it with a saw. And people have written all sorts of things in it. Modern day petroglyphs. Many people have written their names and other things and done little drawings in the soft sandstone of the chimney of the fireplace for this old ranch house. This fireplace probably warmed those desert evenings and mornings up pretty good when you get a fire built in there and you can make a super cup of coffee in there. But no more. The roof's gone from this old homestead house, so it won't be with us much longer. It's starting to rot and cave in now, although it takes longer in the desert for this to happen, but it looks like it's still happening. Those boards on the floor must have collapsed down from the ceiling. Looks like it had an upstairs in it. The blocks have caved down. Looks to have been an actual nice big fireplace.
You got a shape in the middle to be here.
The door.
Looks like a good amount of room.
The door has fallen off. Go in and take a look. Yeah, that fireplace must have felt pretty good on a real cold morning, with a cold breeze blowing. Looks like this door is about worn out, as well as their floor. And the walls are shiplap, and I think they just wallpaper over that. Something got itself eaten in here. Oh, it was fancy. It had closets. And I think they just stretched that fabric out and then wallpaper over it, although the wallpaper is almost completely gone. Oh yeah, you can see fragments of the wallpaper. Sort of a cheesecloth fabric that they wallpapered over. Oh, and the floor was these little tongue and groove boards. That was pretty nice. I guess you didn't have to put anything over them if you didn't want to. Oh, and there's a little wallpaper still on. This was probably the pantry. Could you see up where the stairway is, Joe?
Yeah. You can walk all the way up them.
Well, this apparently was the kitchen. And then that was kind of a dumb waiter. You could set the food there. And kind of a strange wallpaper design. And the living room must have been, or something. Well, probably the living room was in there and this was more the dining room. And a little closet under the stairway. Wow, that was a long old couch. Over there. There's Joe. Couches have been moved in here probably afterwards. When the fireplace collapsed, they probably moved them in here. And this was undoubtedly the dining room. And then the stairway goes to an upstairs.
Careful walking that with your shoes being untied.
Yeah. Oh wow, a nice big bedroom up here. It's got the little tongue and groove boards, and they're a full inch thick. Wow, this was a big bedroom up here. A bedroom off to the side here for the kids, I guess. The latch for the old door. And then there was apparently a screen door on it because there's hooks right here. So you'd have a hook to hook the screen door shut. Kitchen window. What was this, the root cellar out here?
This was a well here.
Oh yeah. The old well. All rocked up, hand dug. Is there any water down in it?
I don't think so.
Got too much debris in it, huh? They had lots of doors, and here was a porch out front. The outhouse is over in the corner. Looks like the wood rats have filled these walls full of junk. I've been looking all over for the root cellar, and here it is. And boy, that was a nice, big, nice one here. Real fine root cellar. Not a bit of roofing left on it. The old outhouse. I don't know what this hole was for. The old outhouse is right here. And over at the main house, I saw no evidence that it ever had any plumbing or electricity. Looks like the old original outhouse hole may have been here. Then they dug a new one for that outhouse. And apparently they had an irrigation ditch running through here so they could irrigate. I'll bet they grew a good garden here too. Apparently this was their feed troughs. Looks like the foundation of this house was on old sandstone. This brings back fond old memories to me since I was born and raised on a working cattle ranch in Montana. This is a little bit similar, although the area is somewhat different. The old barn was right here. It's enough to bring back those old memories. The kraals were built in the same manner ours were. Looks like a bunch of horse stalls in the old barn. Like this part over here they might have used to milk a cow in. What is that, a wood rat nest?
Looks like
Was out here built with juniper posts. The old juniper krell. They could use it for branding cattle and breaking horses and whatever needed to be done. Looks like even an old gate over on the other side. The old juniper krell with a nice gate on it. Heavy duty juniper posts for gate posts. And then just some woven wire fence here to steer the cattle in and out of the corral. Must have been another gate right here that led the cattle out that direction. I remember in Montana where I was raised on a ranch as a child, we had this same type of corrals made the same way. We went on to a little spring and there was a water pipe that distributed the water to different places here, different troughs, and it had water in it. And boy, those little birds were having a heyday there. Now we're going to move on. The desert seems to stretch on to infinity as we dip up mile after mile of dust, seeing not much but a few antelope. We found some canyons that looked like they needed to be checked out. It was nice canyons with a little spring in the bottom of them. That would be good for mule deer, but we see none just because the numbers are extremely low on mule deer out here this year. We get back to our camp just as the keepers of the star was putting the sun away for the evening, and it looks like Marge is the keeper of the camp and she's cooking dinner. Then the next morning we get up and look around a canyon. We found a cave in this canyon, and that cave looks to me like it needs to be explored. Marge will go in first and take a look. Looks as if this cave just keeps going back. At first, we never had our flashlights with us, and so I was crawling in without a light, and my hand that I put in front, suddenly I felt the earth disappear under it, and so I backed up real quick. thinking that maybe it was a major cave-in. And then after I backed up, I threw a rock up there, and I think it was just a spot where the rodents had dug a bunch of holes, probably kangaroo rats had dug a bunch of holes, and just that little bit caved in. But Dwayne will come in a little bit and bring a flashlight.
Oh, it's a lava tube.
And we'll give it a good looking
Oh,
open.
it may go forever.
It gets really small. An owl in here, I think.
Oh, you saw one?
No, just the shit in there.
Oh, the owl balls?
Oh, the lazy pack sagebrush in here. Well, it appears the dead end though.
Can you shine your light in there and see what it does?
Goes back up quite a ways too.
Quite a ways.
Well, we're packing up and getting ready to go. I went down to take one last look at the water hole, and I see some wild mushrooms growing, but I didn't have my book to key them out, so we're not going to eat them just in case they're the wrong thing. But when I got down to the water hole and looked around, I was pleasantly surprised that there were mule deer tracks down there. 2 big bucks had gone into water right at the water hole. There's mainly horse tracks, but there's some mule deer tracks there.
There's been a big old buck deer here watering and some sage grouse. There's the deer track again. And there's the old buck track and some sage grouse tracks around. I thought I heard some rock rabbits chirping last night, and here's some of the sagebrush tips they lay out and let it dry, and then when it's dry enough they drag it in a hole and save it for winter. And if it starts to rain, they'll hurry up and grab it and put it in the shelter till the rain's over, and then put it out to finish drying.
Since we had to go and Joe didn't, I told Joe about the tracks and I told him to get down there. He said, well, I was planning on taking the day off. And I said, no, the deer are in now. And since they're in here, you can probably find them. And find them, he did. So Joe and Nikkie each got their bucks all in one little group.